Andrew Donaldson, your perspective on this?
I agree. This is actually a political problem that has diverged from the optics problem. And right now, the biggest problem the GOP House has is terrible, terrible optics. They know they can't do another extended speaker fight. And yet here they are in the middle of it. The vote with Scalise was an absolute disaster because he's nowhere close. That means he not only doesn't have support, he has organized resistance from somewhere in the party, believing which reports you want to believe. That may be the McCarthy camp or others, maybe hoping to bring him back in like you referenced. But, yeah, they got to get this fixed, and they got to get it fixed quick. They've got to get whatever they're going to do internally fixed quickly. The optics are absolutely killing them, and they're getting worse by the day.
Let me go to you, Andrew. Is George Santos a con artist?
I think he would have to move up in the world 2 or 3 spots to reach the level of con artist, and we should not besmirch the good con artists out there for what this feller is. I don't know we've really seen anything like him in public office. Everything about him is at least highly questionable at best. He sure does seem to be an opportunist. He has an extremely shady past. He seems to lie about absolutely everything he says, and anything he says you can't take for granted at all. If this man quoted John 3:16, I would be obliged to go check the source documentation on it, or if he told me the sky was blue, I'd walk outside and check. Yeah, he's totally a con artist. It's an embarrassment. Now, there was no legal mechanism to keep him from taking his seat. GOP should have immediately expelled him. They didn't. So now they're talking about maybe trying to do it now with the new batch of indictments. We'll see if that goes, but the other mess plays into that of not having current leadership. We'll see what happens, but it's an embarrassment, and the GOP is just kind of stuck with the embarrassment because they didn't nip it in the bud to start with.
Now, this guy charges $16,000 to somebody else's credit card. He loans himself $500,000 and put it in an account to make his opposition think that he had serious money, and when you really investigate it, it only had $8,000 to his name. I mean, it's just baffling to me, and obviously the Democratic congressman that he's ousted, Andrew, has said that he is definitely running again, and it looks like that the margins that the GOP has had in the Congress is about to get thinner.
Yeah, the GOP Congress in general is in real trouble in this next cycle. But if I was the Democratic Party, I'd probably get somebody else, because as bad as George Santos is, if he beats you, you probably don't need to be running for much of any elected office anyway, even if nobody really knew anything about him and it was just a protest vote. They should probably run somebody else. He's going to get a GOP challenger. That'll be a competitive seat, and we'll see what happens. But to your larger point, this is a bad optic on a caucus and on a GOP party that's going to have a very tough time holding on to the House GOP. They need to excise this kind of stuff if they're going to have any chance of maintaining their majority.
Andrew, does this tell Americans that we should be at high alert? We saw the Iranian parliament dancing and celebrating the deaths and saying death to Israel and death to America. Do you think that there could possibly be another terrorist attack on American soil like 9/11?
We should always be vigilant. Iran has done that since the Shah fell. They do that every Friday. The Ayatollah usually leads those in person, those chants. This is nothing new. Of course, we should always be vigilant. The reality is we're not. We let our guard down. Things like 9/11 happen. Obviously, the Israelis here, despite, one of the best intelligence services in the world, they got caught flat-footed, and we'll see what happens with the reports on that. You always have to be vigilant. There is always wolves out there that no matter what you do are going to come to you. So what do? You have to be prepared, and you have to decide ahead of time, not when the attack comes, not when the bombs fell, not when the gunmen show up, how you're going to respond to such things. And that's something we can't control when we get attacked, but we can control how we prepare, and we can decide ahead of time how we're going to respond. What we were just talking about here, proportional responses. Yes, it's fun to say you want to make Gaza parking lot, but there's 2 million people in there. Most of them are human shields to Hamas. So no, you're not really going to do that. You have to decide ahead of time. Yes, we're going to have righteous anger. Yes, we're going to try to get some justice and right in the world, but we also have to be a little measured. And don't forget that if you are the aggrieved, you don't want to become the bad guy and trying to get revenge only. You have to be proportional. That's part of the responsibility of power.
So Andrew, your quick thoughts on this. We've got about a minute left on what he had to say.
Far more than the words. You could just see it on the man's face, what that country's going through. You could feel that emotion. I feel for him. I feel for the country. I pray for them. I've been in contact with friends over there. This is a righteous thing they're doing, going after Hamas. But again, like a lot of the other things we talked about, and you pressed him on, we know what a reoccupied Gaza looks like because we've seen that. We know from history fighting terrorism is a bloody exercise in whack-a-mole. You got to go after the finances and the support structures. I support our Jewish friends. I know we all do in their quest to get justice here. But there's a lot of long-term questions that need very serious answers and level-headed thinking.